What do you do for a living?
I ride skateboards.
Ride skateboards.
Mostly, yeah.
Right. That's a cool job.
Yeah.
And it's worked out pretty good. A little bit, I think.
Some days are good.
Yeah, some days are better.
Yeah.
And Scooter, you're responsible for a movement that has changed the world called Bieber Fever. You even forced me to, I have the fever. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but I actually have the fever. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll let you go first, Scooter. Tell me a little bit about how you got to this place.
I played basketball growing up, and I went to, I found out that a 5'11" Jew with a jump shot isn't going to make it to the NBA.
No.
So I went to play D3, and then my best friend was a great player at Duke University. And I realized that he was going to make it and I wasn't. So I started to actually throw parties in college to make some extra money. And I will admit, because you're smiling because you know the truth, that I actually sold fake IDs right before I started throwing the parties. And I realized after 1 month of doing it that I didn't need to do that. So I was doing parties, and then I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and the whole hip-hop movement of Atlanta was coming up. So I got approached by a rapper named Ludacris to work with him, and I was 19 years old. And I was doing the parties, I was working with Ludacris, and then I started doing stuff for NSYNC, for Britney Spears, for a lot of other groups, and then a guy named Jermaine Dupri approached me about doing marketing for him. He said, you know, Jermaine's a very short guy, he's about 5'4", and I remember the conversation, he was sitting in a stool and his feet were dangling, and he was telling me, you know, that I'm more potential than parties. So I went to work for him, and I became the VP of his company. I was 20 years old. I left college to run my company and his, broke my mother's heart. My brother, who's here, graduated from Ivy League, so she's, you know, has her favorite son now. And I was frustrated because I had these ideas. I was in college, you know, Facebook came and all these different things and social media and, you know, Google. And I had these ideals of using social media for marketing and branding with music. And my boss didn't agree with me. And my father gave me really great advice. I called him and he said, son, either shut the F up and work for the person you work for, or go and take a risk while you're young and don't have kids. So I went and took a risk, and I signed a kid out of his dorm room named Asher Roth, and we ended up doing a song called I Love College, and I had a run with that. And then 4 months after finding Asher, I saw a 12-year-old kid singing online. He had 60,000 views. And I caught the fever. I'm patient zero. So I found Justin. I kind of stalked him and his mother. I moved them down to me. I've been raising him since he was 12 with his mom and have a very special relationship. And we just went on a run, and my dad gave me good advice.
That's amazing, man.
I actually remember right before we started, I took all the money I had from parties. And being a party promoter, I don't know if you guys know any party, we have a really bad rap. So everyone just thought I was heavily on drugs, and I barely drink. So except at this conference. And then, yeah, I actually took the money I had and I figured out how I could live my lifestyle comfortably for 6 months until I was going to go broke. And I risked everything, and I remember Asher lived on my couch for 6 months, and I had Justin and his mom in a townhouse around the corner, and my name was on the lease, and I had these Canadian citizens living under a lease under my name in Atlanta. And yeah, that wasn't fun. And then in month 5, I Love College hit.
Wow. And
kind of turned it around, and we've been on this wild run, and 4 years later, I'm pinching myself.
Wow.
I'm sitting next to Tony Hawk. Cool.
Segue to Tony. Tell us how you got to be this guy who rides skateboards for a living.
Wow. I started skating because my older brother was into it. He was a surfer, and he was skating because skating was basically bred from surfing. Guys trying to figure out what to do when there's no waves and emulate carving and whatnot. And he was outside basically our alleyway one time, and he had this one board, and I was watching him do it, and I think I was like 8 years old, and I jumped on it, can I try it? Yeah, can I try it? And so I jumped on and I went straight, and I was yelling at him, how do I turn? And then I literally hit the fence at the end of the alley, and then picked it up and turned it around and went back the other way. And there was no fireworks. There was no, it was really just like, wow, that's what you do? That's it? And then he gave me that board, and I ended up skating, because all my friends were doing it at the time. I was kind of the odd man out in that I picked it up later. And then eventually, probably about a year later, one of my friends invited me to the skate park, which there was one in San Diego. And I didn't realize, but they were already on the out. They were kind of on the rise and on the way out in a way. And I found my way to the skate park, and I saw these guys flying around. I literally saw guys flying out of empty swimming pools, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I'm going to do whatever I can to learn how to do that. I want to fly. And I just took on, and much to my own bodily harm, learning how to do this stuff at a really young age. And I was a scrawny rat. I was like a pixie, and trying to do this stuff these bulky dudes were doing. You know, I didn't know any better, and you know, I knocked my teeth out a few times. I got plenty of concussions, stitches, whatnot. The doctor at one point pulled me into another room outside my parents and started asking me questions like I was a beaten child. And then I eventually learned, you know, the basics, and I started competing, because the only way to get noticed back then was to compete. And so I reached the top of the amateur ranks pretty quickly, and that wasn't a great feat because skating was just small.
Yeah.
At the time, and it was getting smaller. And so I got a sponsor. I got sponsored by Dogtown Skateboards, which a lot of people are familiar with from the Dogtown documentary. But what I didn't realize was that Dogtown had been reincarnated. There was a whole new crew, and it was going out of business at the exact time I got sponsored by them. And then I got a call from Stacy Peralta, who is a legendary pro skater and became a businessman at the time. He became partners with another guy. They formed Pal Peralta Skateboards, and they had the most elite team. That was without a hands down. Everyone knew that was the best team. And he called me one day when I was at home. I was 11, and he said, "Hey, I heard Dogtown went out of business," and I was like, "Really?" Weird, because that's probably why I haven't gotten any skateboards from them in a long time. And he said, like, talk to you about being sponsored. So I went and met him. He became my sponsor. He became my coach. He became my mentor. I eventually turned professional when I was 14 years old. And I had a run of successful competition right at the time the skateboarding was dying. But it came back around as I was entering high school. That was the good thing, is that all these people that were good at it were the known names. They were the ones that were sort of at an age of responsibility, and they all had to quit because they couldn't do it for a living anymore. And I was 14. I was a professional skateboarder. Would I care? You know, I'm going to school. It didn't matter. So by the time I was 18, skating was coming back around in vogue. It was getting very popular. Skateboards were springing up again. I was at the top of the game. I bought my first house, while I was still a senior in high school, which is a challenge to make it to school on time when you own your own place and you have 3 roommates the same age. But I made it. Then things were going really well. As soon as I graduated high school, my dad was encouraging me to go to college, but I was the last of 4 children. I was the youngest, and he had already been through the ringer with all of them. They're all very well-adjusted people. My sister is here. She's my business partner, actually. But he had been through so much that it was like, whatever, go, do what you're going to do. So I became a pro skater, and immediately I was traveling the world. I was, living this dream no one really knew existed, that we were creating as we went, and had a really amazing time. And then about the time that I did reach the age of real responsibility and start a family, skating died again. And I had 2 mortgages. I had a son, and it was very tricky. And then I knew I wanted to be in the skating industry. I loved skating too much. I wanted to be in it. I didn't know if I would make a living as a professional, but I was going to be I was devoted to skateboarding. So I refinanced my house and took all the money and started a skateboard company, which seems like the stupidest thing in the world to do when skating's dying, but it was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a company owner and be behind the scenes. I quit my sponsor and started, and for about 3 years, struggled very hard with my partner and I. We had pooled our money together. He was an ex-pro skater as well, and we just did Birdhouse and did whatever we could to get by, and all the team was staying on my couch. I'm literally like, while I'm changing diapers, I'm like driving guys to these spots that they're gonna get arrested at because there's no skate parks, so they're gonna go ride schoolyards, and it was such a strange existence. But I loved it because it was skateboarding and it was exactly what I wanted to do. And so we really hunkered down. You know, like I was living on Taco Bell and peanut butter and jelly and top ramen for probably 3 years for sure. But I didn't care because it was like I still got to do what I love. That's the thing, is that people think, was it a struggle? And it's like, well, no, because, you know, I loved it too much. I still got to go skate. And I had time to skate. I didn't have to go sit behind a computer for 8 hours and then hope I get time to skate.
No offense to anybody who sits behind.
No, but it wasn't that. It was that if I had chosen that, like I love video editing, I love to do it, but I knew that I wasn't going to make a living at it.
Right.
And I loved skating, and I wanted to be able to make a living at it. And so eventually the X Games started in 1995. We found sort of a new life in media coverage, and I kind of got a second career through that. I had stopped competing because I was devoted to the company, and then the X Games came around and said, I'm still doing this, I'm still good at it, I'm going to compete again. And I won. I was on a really good winning streak through the first 4 years of X Games or so. 1999, they had the best trick event. I landed the first 900.
I think I was standing on the ramp when
you were there for sure. I think your voice resonates in my head too when I was landing it. But and it marked the end of probably my best year of competition. I had competed for 20 years at that point. And I wanted to do something else. I wanted to see where else I could take skateboarding, like what other opportunities there were. And skating was just on the rise. Our video game got released. Our first video game got released that very fall, and things blew up.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater from Activision, yeah. And things blew up ever since
They
then.
did a lot when I was struggling for those 6 months.
I've heard that, and actually I've heard a lot of people blame me for them failing college.
Dropped out my sophomore year, so yeah, basically.
But I think everyone's going to start blaming you for Angry Birds.
For sure.
Because it's mobile. So anyway, things kind of blew up from there, and then I started new businesses. Hot Clothing line. I started a foundation for public skate parks, and still skating through and through. I did a tour that included skateboarding, BMX, and motocross, kind of the first of its kind, called Boom Boom Puck Jam. And really, I'm still exploring what's possible with all this, and kind of making up as we go along, but at the same time, embracing new technologies, embracing social media, and figuring out how far we can resonate, because everything's not everything, but the information is global now, and that means that we have to follow through with getting access to all of these things, and with skateboarding especially. Like, skateboarding is huge in the US, it's huge in Australia, it's huge in Brazil. It's barely known in China, but they have some of the best facilities there. And I think there are ways to promote it that are more grassroots. And so I'm just excited to be here, to be honest. So that's my story, that's how I got here.
That's awesome. Both of you guys are strong proponents and really groundbreaking users of social media. How important is it to take advantage for you guys to go directly to the source, to the customer, to the consumer? In your case, with Justin Bieber, you guys bypassed the music industry, bypassed the rules that already existed, and said, you don't believe us? We're going to go straight to the fans.
I think, when you hear the word no, it's more exciting. You were giving a great talk before about how you put games into your life to save your life. And I think, it's the same thing. We made it a game for us. Every single time we heard the word no, it was a new challenge. I was hearing no from my heroes. You know, I was getting meetings with people that I looked up to my entire life, and they were telling me not just no, hell no. You know, I thought you were a marketer. You're not an A&R. Get out of my office. Why are you here with this child? And you know, we just stopped going to those meetings, and we started having a direct conversation, you know, with the consumer and with the fans, and that's what worked the best. And you know, now I meet a lot of, you know, I started in this business when I was 19, and I'm meeting a lot of people that age, and they're talking to me, and my advice to them is, who cares what I think? You know, go directly out there and find out what they think. And that's the great thing. We took platforms that existed and just communicated on a, you know, one-on-one basis. You know, to me, it's more significant to have a conversation with, for Justin, it's more significant for him to have a conversation directly with a fan, you know, a 16-year-old girl in Iowa, than it is to get an interview with Billboard magazine. Because, you know, we make people believe in the dream, you know, that it can happen, that you can be touched by these people. And for the first time, thanks to all these amazing platforms out there, you can sit in your living room and be touched by your hero. And that's all it was. It was just, you know, creating that dream and giving kids something to believe in, because at the time, you know, we're in a recession, and, you know, you turn on, the kids turn on MTV and they'd see, you know, the hills and kids driving around in their cars and inheritance and everything else like that. That just sucks. You know, it doesn't really give you a lot of hope when you're a teenager and you see your parents losing their job and, you know, maybe losing their home, and you're turning on TV and seeing children of privilege. So we wanted Justin to represent a story of rags to riches. We wanted a story of, if you put your mind to it and if you put in the effort, you know, the time and the effort, you can achieve something. And not only did we tell the story, we involved them in the story. It's always been about them. I remember there was one interview where they asked me, you know, I'm very shocked, you know, Team Bieber is very small. There's only like 6 of you. And I said, well, I actually think that we're bigger than any corporation in the world, because we have millions of devoted fans who create content on a daily basis for us, and we distribute it through our platforms. So, you know, it's an exciting time, because you hear all these things about the music industry dying. And to me, I'm not in the music industry. I'm in the multimedia industry. And I'm in an industry where, if you look at musicians, I have a buddy who's out there somewhere, Troy, who manages Lady Gaga. Justin and Gaga are the 2 biggest people in social media on the planet. They're both musicians. If you look at every single social media platform out there, it's musicians sitting on the top. So these are people who affect all of us significantly. If I talk to each one of you individually, music is probably going to be the timeline of your life. So how do we take that and create that brand and use it to create other things? So, you know, my dream someday is that, you know, sports, music, you know, film, television, all that is just an advertisement for a platform. You know, and that we can all work together and really, you know, build those things out. And Justin was just, I mean, he's incredibly talented. You saw the movie, you cried 3 times, you told me.
Why would you tell that to the audience? I did. They sent me the movie, and I had to avoid watching the movie. Even when I worked at the entertainment, I was like, I'm not going to watch that. And they sent it to me. I cried 3.5, maybe 4 times in the Justin Bieber movie. It's powerful. You're like, no, don't make me cry, Bieber.
But I think it's a fun story, and he's a talented kid.
Don't watch it.
He's a really talented kid, but the whole premise of it was to prove something. And, you know, I think now the next step for him, at least, is everyone assumes he is a kid. And unfortunately, as human beings, we think of everything so negatively. You know, I'm sure when you were going through it with skateboarding, they said, oh, skateboarding's over. And you took that risk because you knew you believed in something. And success, nothing great ever comes easy. Yeah. So the next thing is, oh, he can't make it, he's a kid, and he won't be here in 10 years. You know, they said the same thing. People forget that Michael Jackson, after the Jackson 5, was thought of as corny and wasn't supposed to do anything. And people forget that, you know, the Beatles were thought of as that teeny act, and they were girls screaming and no one was paying attention. If you make great music, you continue. And if you make a great product, you continue. If you hit that 900, you continue. And if you carry yourself well, and you know, I've heard it, the theme of everything I've been hearing from all the speakers is that if you carry yourself with positivity and you surround yourself with positivity, you get positive results. And I learned that lesson, because I'm not going to name names, but when I was in college and I did own a promotion company, I had a kid who worked for me, who someone else vouched for, super smart, big asshole. And he just made me look in the mirror and question myself on a daily basis. I thought I was the asshole. And now I've surrounded myself, the people who work, with me, I don't consider, not for me, they work with me. They're really good people. And I enjoy working with them. I enjoy my team. I mean, you saw some of them in the movie just on the road. We're a family. And I think that's why we're experiencing such success, because the fans and the consumers, they enjoy watching our story because they can tell we enjoy it.
Right.
So, and I think that's the direct relationship. And thank God for all these social media platforms, because it's not fake. There is no marketing gimmick. The gimmick is real.
Yeah.
Just keeping it authentic as you can.
And Tony, you're one of those people who is never been afraid to get right out there with the fans. Your Twitter work is the stuff of legend. Just talk a little bit about how you use social media, especially with some of your scavenger hunts, etc.
Well, I think that the thing that I really love about our sports in general too is that the athletes are totally approachable. They're not shrouded by some big company or have to hit an exact talking point or whatever it is. That they will come to you'll go to the skate park. We go to a skate park with our team. Our skate park's just our team is just there riding with the locals. That doesn't happen in ball sports. You don't just get a pickup game with LeBron. Like, that's not going to ever happen. But
he's got some free time now.
Wrong example, but I think that, and so in social media, I really feel like those voices shine through, and especially in our world, and I kind of found Twitter just because I heard people talking about it, and then I joined and realized that, and realized how prolific it is instantly. It was just in the speed of information. I mean, you find out about an earthquake immediately when it happens because someone you follow is there, and it's not on the news or whatever it is. And I was thinking about all that, and I was driving to my office one day, my ramp. It really is an office, but it's there because the warehouse fits my entire half pipe. So everything else is incidental to that. I was driving there, and I thought, God, I wonder what happens if I just put a skateboard here in the bushes, and said it's right here. And I did. I had a skateboard in my trunk, surprise. And I hid it behind this fire hydrant and at the end of a cul-de-sac. And I just said, I just wrote, I left the skateboard Palomar Airport Road in this intersection behind the fire hydrant. And by the time I got to my office, 15 minutes later, there was a picture of this girl holding it, and all these people saying, "Oh, we just drove up," but she was driving away, and she said there were 4 cars coming in, and people I knew were looking for it. Guys that works for Skateboard magazine. Oh, I went over there. What? Call me up. But and how much excitement it generated. I mean, I just was reading all the replies, and I thought, wow, that would be super fun to do on a big scale. And so I did. Watch what you wish for. Around Easter a couple years ago, I said, yeah, let's do this on a big scale, and I sent skateboards to people I trust around the world, really, and just said, on this date, tell me where you hit it. And I was a one-man show for the most part. They would hide it, send me the location, I would tweet that out, and watch for replies to see when it got found. And at some point, 6 hours in of just watching replies, I was like, this is heavy duty. It's fun, it's a blast, but I need help. And so last time we did it on Saturday before Easter. We did it at my office. I had help. I just sent a message out saying, hey, anybody want to donate goods? We'll give you a plug. And they came in droves. We had Fender guitars. We had Kicker audio speakers, and we had fancy almonds, and I mean, it was just all over the place. Cornflakes. It was and so we would put together a whole a goodie box, and we sent out 50 of them across the world, and that was super exciting to see it refined like that, to really do it on a big scale. And they didn't want anything in return except recognition at the end. And that was it. That's all we did, you know. And
It's so cool to see the pictures of the people when they find their boxes. You get the smiles just wrapped around their head.
yeah, and some people that I employ, but some people that I ask to help, they like to get a little tricky with it. Like there's this guy in London loves to make it just this whole hunt and clues and go to this gallery and look under this desk and you go to the next place and then order this kind of sandwich and this guy will tell you this. He goes a little crazy with it, but people love it, and even when they don't find it, they love that they were a part of that movement and part of the excitement. Sometimes it's heartbreaking because they'll bring like their really young children, and they are full of promises.
Yeah.
We're gonna find this thing. Sorry, you didn't find it.
Yeah.
But you might want to be a little more reality-based with the children when you're going out to find something like that.
When you're going out with your children on a scavenger hunt that started on the internet.
Yeah.
You guys both players of Angry Birds, correct? Scooter,
Very much so.
Scooter even once called himself the Michael Jordan of Angry Birds.
I only said that with my girlfriend in our bed.
Oh.
And
you never
because
know
I was
where I'm
just
listening.
competing against her, and the fact that
Then
you
I'm
know that,
LeBron
that's your
James.
revenge for the crying in the movie.
Indeed. It is.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you an opportunity to see if that's really who you are, because Tony Hawk and Scooter Braun are going to play one round of Angry Birds right now.
Yes. Well, let's do this.
Can we play Tony Hawk Pro Skater next? Is that what
All right, we're swapping.
Oh,
I see something happening here.
I go first?
You got an advantage.
At the
Both
same
same
time?
time.
Okay, I was going to say, it would be unfair otherwise.
One round,
One round of the first level ever?
highest score
Wow.
wins.
At the same time, or?
Yeah, go for it.
These are all the same birds.
Yeah, well,
You're on a different level.
you're on a different level.
I'm on a different level.
Good luck.
Is your level harder?
I don't know. Okay, here we go.
Oh, no. No.
No offense, but Tony finished already.
Game's not over. I'm struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh! It's over.
Yeah.
Oh, it's over, and it was not pretty.
He's a professional athlete.
Yes, he is.
No, I spent a lot of time on airplanes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in airplane mode,
I'm,
how's
I'm,
that?
I'm going to get murdered by my girlfriend one day.
Can't wait to tell Bieber about this
Yeah.
one. Tony Hawk, your prize
Yes.
Oh, yes.
is an Angry Birds
you
t-shirt
go.
from the creator,
All right.
creator
Job.
Mr.
Great
Rocket
job.
himself.
Thanks, man.